As of today, East and West Germany became a single, unified country, ending 45 years of division. Up next, the formation and future of today's Germany is the topic of a discussion with the Washington directors of 3 German political party foundations. We're joined by Dieter Detke of the Friedrich Ebert Foundation, Wolfgang Portzig of the Konrad Adenauer Foundation, and Jürgen Wiechert of the Friedrich Naumann Foundation.
Mr. Dieter Detke, Executive Director of the Friedrich Ebert Foundation of Germany. What's your reaction to this Unification Day?
It's a glorious day. It's an important day. An artificial division has come to an end. It's reason for joy. And I hope that Germany will be able to live up to all the expectations that will now necessarily follow from unification. But no doubt it's an important day for Germany, and I'm glad it happened. I'm glad there is a change on the other side, and I feel happy.
Did you do anything special to celebrate today?
Not really. I was reluctant to celebrate, even to drink. I want to wait and see how it works out. I'm pretty sure it will. We have the best conditions in order to do it. But I am reluctant to really celebrate for some reason that I have difficulties even to explain. So it is also what has been called reason to think about our own history. And I think we have to do that a little more now that we are just about to take on much greater responsibilities in Europe. And I hope that's going to work out well.
Mr. Wolfgang Portzig, representative of the Konrad Adenauer Foundation, what's your reaction to this day?
Brian, I obviously am very happy. I feel gratified and grateful. I have lived in this country for almost 10 years here in Washington, and I'm grateful to the American people. Without them, this day would not have been possible. I am representing the Konrad Adenauer Foundation, and it feels good to be in the White House and the Rose Garden this morning and to have the U.S. President quote Konrad Adenauer, who started on the road to unification. And nothing could have expressed that legacy of Konrad Adenauer better than what the German people 2 days ago watched on German TV, namely a discussion between the current Chancellor Helmut Kohl and the previous Chancellor Willy Brandt. And they sat in Konrad Adenauer's office, old office, and discussed the meaning and the obligation of this very day.
On the screen, let me just interrupt, on the screen is the President signing the treaty this morning, and you were there?
I was there. And he had given a short speech before and pronounced his congratulations and quoted Konrad Adenauer. And I am proud to be a German, and I'm even more proud to work for an organization which carries the name of the first Chancellor who started this process, and I'm proud to be here today in Washington to express these feelings to the American people, and I think we all can express our appreciation.
And Mr. Jürgen Wiechert, representative of the Friedrich Naumann Foundation, how do you feel about this day?
It's a day of great joy for me. It's a day where you feel everything in one moment. Today I was already twice in tears, and I had to laugh. There were great moments this morning in the White House, in the Rose Garden. My 6-year-old daughter was there, and she was dancing for the President.
You've got to show, I know you showed me this picture. Can I show the audience the
yes,
picture?
Sure, yeah.
That you had taken this morning. You've already had it developed?
Developed right away. Here she is.
And your daughter is where in this picture?
Here.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt.
She stood up, and the President sat down on her little chair there. And I was fortunately right next to her. And I told her, give him the flowers. She forgot about the flowers. I said, give him the flowers. She didn't hear me, but the President heard it, so he took the flowers and everything was fine. Now, it is a day, as I said, it's a day where you feel, I feel everything at the same time, and I don't know what comes first. It's a day of joy. It's a day also of remembering. So the tears may be those of joy and those also of remembering the victims of the divided Germany, and before, the victims of what caused Germany to be divided, the Nazi time.
I want to ask you each to tell us more about the foundation that you represent, but first, just for the fun of you, don't mind doing this, how old are you? Where were you in World War II?
I'm 49. I was born in 1941, and I lived through part of the Second World War. I lived on the other side of the Iron Curtain in East Germany for some years, till 1953, and we had to flee. So we had the first experience, the first impact, I think, of the German division there, right there. And that had consequences. It made me think politically as a student, high school student later on. So it forms you to some degree.
Mr. Portzig, how about you? How old are you?
I am 43 years old. I was born, obviously, after World War II in 1947, and my family is from what used to be the eastern part of Germany, now Poland. I myself was born in Braunschweig, which is a wonderful town in northern Germany.
Mr. Wiekert.
I'm 46, and I was born in Säckingen, which is on the southern part of the Black Forest, right at the border to Switzerland, where nothing was felt about the war, except that my father was in Russia fighting and spent many years as a prisoner of war. There was only one bomb going down in Säckingen, and that was an incident because the French troops tried to follow the Rhine, and the Rhine makes a lot of curves there, and the Swiss did not allow any plane to go over their territory. They were shooting at them, and he dropped his bombs to get away from that situation, and one of that bomb not far from our house fell into a garden and blew out all the windows of our house, but that was the only thing which happened.
Amid the joy and all the things written about this day and around this particular change in Germany are some comments like the following, and this comes from Rudi Boschwitz, who was born in Berlin.
Yep.
He's a senator from Minnesota. He's a Republican. He's a member of the Senate Armed Services Committee. And this was during the debate on whether or not they should pass this treaty that stops the division of Germany. Boschwitz noted Germany's involvement in wars and the Holocaust. Germany is Germany from the standpoint of its history, and I think we need to have some recognition of that fact, Boschwitz said. I have a mixed emotion about seeing it back together again. Hopefully the feeling and mentality of the people have changed. What's your reaction?
I think it did change. I can very well understand what a senator like Boschwitz, with his experience, is saying, and I know that he went back to Berlin after the wall opened to see the city again. And I think he didn't go to Germany very often before that. But I think there is hope, and there is a very healthy experience that Germany made. By the way, in many ways on the eastern side too, at least as far as the people is concerned. Living under an authoritarian, totalitarian regime makes you very sensitive, and my feeling is that we have pretty good chances to build a democracy. Even the GDR, that had the unfortunate situation of living under dictatorship since 1933, had a chance to follow events in West Germany, had a chance to participate through TV, through all the contacts that were going on in our democratic development. And I think that helps a lot to prepare us all, I think, to keep up developing our democratic society. So there's a chance to do that.
Mr. Portzig, when you hear things like Germany is Germany, what does that sound like to you?
I certainly have the greatest respect to Senator Boschwitz, and he represents a group in this country which obviously feels anxiety towards the unification of Germany, very understandably so. It's up to us to explain what this new Germany is all about and to, in a very straightforward way, discuss, for instance, how unification will change our political culture, how we will convey civic and political education to those 16 million people in East Germany. And most important, I think, today, yes, there's joy, and I've expressed that. Yes, there's gratitude, but there's also a certain remembrance, soberness, because, as it has been said before, there is no discussion, no contemplation about unification without remembering Nazi Germany, without remembering Holocaust and the suffering of European peoples, most of all the Jewish community. We, as the Konrad Adenauer Foundation, have embarked upon a great many programs with the American Jewish community to explain who we are, the young generation, the new generation, the post-World War II generation. As a matter of fact, right after this discussion here this afternoon, I will be going back to my office where representatives of the American Jewish Committee, one of the organizations we cooperate with, will discuss with a group of young visitors who are visiting the United States under the Konrad Adenauer Foundation's auspices this day and its meaning and what we have to do vis-a-vis the Jewish community in this country, but beyond all over the world. I just want to assure you, Brian, that despite all the joy, despite all the happiness, those of us who represent the new Germany, the democratic Germany, realize that unification and joy about unification cannot be enjoyed, cannot be lived without remembrance. And coming back to Senator Boschwitz's remark, we just have to shoulder the burden to credibly demonstrate to him that there is a new awareness, that there is a democratic structure, and everything possible will be done that the suffering which occurred between 33 and 45 will never, ever happen again.
Mr. Wiechert, once again, Senator Boschwitz said, hopefully the feeling and mentality of the people have changed.
I can assure you they have changed. Also, if he says Germany is Germany, this Germany never had existed before. Sometimes this is forgotten. It's a new Germany, by all means. We have democratic institutions, they are in place. I have no fear whatsoever, not for our generation, nor for our children's generation, the times to come. I think we are strongly in the Western democratic value community. We will play our part, and I hope the Senator will have a long life so that he can be witness of that.
The Friedrich Naumann Foundation, who was Friedrich Naumann?
Friedrich Naumann was the founder, I would say, of the political liberalism at the turn of the century. And he was the teacher of our first president after the war, Professor Theodor Heuss, the president of the Federal Republic. He founded our foundation as an institution of public education, as an institution for training for democracy about 30 years ago.
How long have you been in the United States?
6 years, 2 in New York and 4 here.
And what does the foundation do here in the United States, and how do you get your money?
In the United States, we have 2 programs. One is in New York at the United Nations. It's dedicated to the North-South Dialogue Program. And the program here in Washington, as the colleagues program, also is a Transatlantic Dialogue Program. The money comes from the German Parliament, as it is for all the political foundations in Germany.
In other words, all 3 of your foundations are funded by the German Parliament. And you're associated with or affiliated with the Free Democrats?
Exactly, the junior partner in government, or Mr. Genscher's party, as it is usually called here.
Your foreign minister is from this party in
Yes.
Germany,
Yep.
Mr. Genscher,
Yes.
who we see on
Yes.
television all the time, signing the treaties.
Sometimes more, sometimes less liked. In the meantime, Genscherism, as I say, is a mass movement, and he is very glad about this.
Okay. Friedrich Ebert, who was he?
The first democratically elected president of Germany, of democratic Germany, the Weimar Republic, after the First World War that ended a period of authoritarianism in Germany, and Friedrich Ebert was the first democratic president. And he, by the way, founded our foundation in 1925, and he wanted that underprivileged students have a chance to go to universities, learn how to deal, how to participate in a democracy, and he created centers for adult education to enable people to participate in a democratic society. And we are carrying on that heritage, and we, of course, enlarged after the Second World War. We were forbidden the foundation, lost everything in the Third Reich. But after the Second World War, we came back, we built up again, and now we're one of the bigger political foundations in Germany, affiliated with the Social Democratic Party, doing programs all over the world, Africa, Asia, Latin America, Central America. And we now went into Eastern Europe and tried to help there build democracies. We have offices in Poland and Warsaw and Prague and Budapest. We have one in the Soviet Union too and offer programs there.
How long have you been in the United States?
I have been here for 5 years now, and we offer programs here in the United States for German-American relations. We have an office in New York too, like the Friedrich Naumann Foundation. We work there with the United Nations and do programs and seminars, conferences in various fields.
Give us a name and a face to associate the Social Democrats with. Mr. Lafontaine?
Mr. Lafontaine is the present chancellor candidate of the Social Democratic Party. The head of the party is Helga Börner, former minister president of the Land in Germany, Hesse. But I guess the most important name in the foundation would be Willy Brandt, of course, the man who formed the Social Democratic Party after the Second World War and played such an important role for the party, but for the country too, I must say, in his various functions as mayor of the city of Berlin, as foreign minister in a very critical period in Germany, and of course as chancellor.
Now, the leader of the Social Democratic Party was stabbed a number of months ago.
Yes.
I assume he survived all that, and what kind of shape is he in today?
He is in good shape. He is and ready to fight for the elections, and we hope to do well in the coming elections, both in the Länder elections, the state elections in East Germany on October 14th, pretty soon to come, and also, of course, in the December 2 elections in all Germany, the first all Germans elections since a long, long time.
How many Social Democrats are in the Bundestag, the chief parliamentary body?
100 out of the 518 deputies in the Bundestag, the Social Democratic Party has 192, I believe. No, it's 224.
224, and how many Free Democrats are there?
54.
That takes us to the Konrad Adenauer Foundation. Who was Konrad Adenauer again?
Konrad Adenauer was the first chancellor of the Federal Republic of Germany. He was elected in 1949 and served well into the mid-60s. He is the statesman who integrated Germany into the West, who led the West Germans after World War II into the Northern Alliance, the Transatlantic Alliance, and knew from the very beginning that only a close friendship and close connection between the United States and Germany would keep the German question open. And today, October 3, 1990, proves that he was right.
And you've been here for 10 years?
I've been in Washington for 9 years, and I lived here before for 2 years, altogether almost 11 years.
And how many members are there of the Christian Democrats? There is add 54.
518. I think it's 242. If I'm not.
And Helmut Kohl is the name and face we should associate with the Christian Democrats.
Helmut Kohl has been the chairman of the Christian Democratic Union. He is the chancellor, and he also is a board member of the Konrad Adenauer Foundation.
How much money is involved, and we'll just do this quickly, in each of your foundations? How much money does the Friedrich Naumann Foundation have to spend worldwide?
Worldwide, in more than 60 countries, we come this year up to about $80–90 million.
Friedrich Ebert?
Total budget is 180 million German marks last year. We divide that up into operations in other countries, 50% roughly, and the other 50% for programs in Germany.
What's the exchange rate right now? How many marks to the dollar?
157, 0.6.
1
yes.
1.57 marks to the dollar.
100 billion, roughly 100 million US dollars would be our total budget.
And how about the Konrad Adenauer Foundation?
Very similar. Our budget is about $110 million. Two-thirds of that amount goes into international programs. And if I can add just a few remarks, Brian, what we do, I think I can speak on behalf of all of us here, is to promote democracy abroad in order to give back what the German people received right after 45, when Germany was in ruins, was starving. We did enjoy the support of the West, above all the United States, and we got re-educated, if you will. We got taught as to what democracy is all about, and now West Germany, Germany, still has to get used to leave out the term West Germany, is a wealthy country with a booming economy, and it is our obligation to give something back, be it the third world, be it other countries. And those foundations spend the money in order to promote, to support, to foster democratic movements, democratic structures abroad. Here in Washington, we try to foster the transatlantic dialogue.
On the table here we have a couple of flags. This one is the East German flag, which I suspect we're going to hold on to. Maybe valuable. Yes, was the East German flag. What's the difference between the East German flag and now the German flag?
It's very easy.
Hammer and sickle.
You simply put that away, and there is no difference anymore.
Just take this. Maybe what we ought to do is just take this off.
This away.
I can't get it out. Oh, there
yes,
it is.
you can.
Okay.
You take this away, and now we have one flag, and there's no difference anymore. How about that one?
You may recall in Leipzig on these Monday night demonstrations, the East German people were carrying their flags but cut out the symbol in the center.
Mm.
And that was very obvious from the very beginning. That means they want to be with us. And I think Helmut Kohl was the first one to understand that. And second was George Bush.
What is your favorite personal story during this period that affected you personally, that friends or relatives that you had over there, or a story that who's got one from this whole experience? I know you all came and you joined us a year ago almost, right after the wall fell.
The most moving experience for me, I think, was when a lot of older Germans, people in retirement, decided after November 9, I'll go over, I'll work there, I'll start all over again. I help. I know that from people who have been in business. I know that from a lot of politicians who went there, who lived there without, nobody paid them. Nobody paid them to do that. They just went there and wanted to help build a new democratic society, and I think that was a great experience. You had people from television, by the way, who went over and did talk shows with people, helped to create new programs on East German TV. Things like that on a very personal level, I think, that happened. And that initiative, that encouraged me to some degree.
Do you have any relatives in East Germany?
I left a sister behind in East Germany, and she was always against the system. She suffered a lot. And let me tell you one thing there, and it's a funny debate that's taking place in West Germany. I think there is some bitterness left behind between the two sides. With all our joy here, watching it from a distance, I think you see a certain mentality in West Germany that people in East Germany do not like, and that is to be put into the same basket as, for instance, the Turks in West Germany. You have jokes that are very much, that are discrediting to some degree, that paint the East German population as lazy, as lagging behind and all that. And I think that's a disgrace. There's some bitterness about a certain degree of arrogance in the West. People already do live in circumstances that are a problem for their own confidence. There is a certain inferiority complex, and if there is, on top of that, a certain arrogance in the West, I think that's unfortunate. That needs to be stopped, and I think that's a dark side to some degree.
Roughly 16 million in East Germany and 61 or so million in West Germany. Now almost 80 million in the two Germanys and Germany combined. How about a personal story? You got one?
Yes, I went to East Berlin just about 3.5 weeks ago and took a cab, an East German cab, which is a Trabi Deluxe, something like that, back to West Berlin and then back to East Berlin. The cab driver was in his mid-60s. He told me his story. He cried, and the most touching moment for me was we were driving along the Kudamm in West Berlin, and he looked at me and said, "This is the first time that I can look at the Gedächtniskirche, the memorial church, which is the
Kaiser
symbol,
Wilhelm?
Yeah,
church." And here was this cab driver who had spent his life across the border, but had not consciously, since 45, or personally seen the Gedächtniskirche. For me, that was very, very moving. If you allow, I would like to come back what Dieter just mentioned in terms of overcoming the division in human terms, which it seems to me is much more difficult than in technical terms. I'm very optimistic in regard to the German economy. I'm very optimistic in regard to monetary issues, social issues. I'm less optimistic in regard to overcoming a less tangible but yet very deeply felt division between the people. I agree, we have to be less arrogant at times vis-à-vis our colleagues from East Germany. We have to understand their life circumstances much better, and we must overcome the category we against them. There are two nicknames around the Westies, the Westerners, and the Aussies. And I think it is a great challenge for the political leadership, the educational leadership, to integrate on a human level both peoples. And again, I think the United States has to play a role and has to help as they did after 45. I would like to appeal to the American people, to the various institutions, to invite, to include the East Germans. The prejudices, the preconceived notions among East Germans vis-à-vis the United States are terrible. No surprise after 40 years of communist propaganda. To turn that around is important, and the United States has to invite them, has to include them. I hope USIA will initiate programs for East Germans to convey upon them a democratic structure and democratic lifestyle.
Mr. Wiegert, personal story?
As I told you, I come from the south in Germany. We have no relatives in East Germany. And I knew Berlin only with the wall and looking over that, diese Schandmauer, as we said. I had a chance to be there on the 18th of March, the first election they had. And when I went over there, I showed my passport. And he said, "Well, I don't need that passport." And I said, "Well, I would like to have a stamp from you." He said, "Well, you always were quarreling and saying, well, you don't accept us. Now you want to have the stamp." I said, "Yes, now I need it as a souvenir." But then I went on to the palace of the Republic where they had the elections, and I realized that the people there lost for us too the Second World War a second time. That they were working and suffering for more than 40 years. They had never had a chance to express their political will. And they were in a miserable condition. The people, their health, the conditions, the streets. And this was for me a very touching and moving experience. I didn't feel good at all.
We, as you all may know, we meaning C-SPAN, went over to Berlin and spent 5 days there and did a lot of television, talked to a lot of people, including Helmut Schmidt, who spent an hour with us talking about his book. And by the way, he would belong to your party.
That's
Helmut
correct,
Schmidt,
yes.
the Social Democrats.
Yes.
One of the most interesting hours we spent was with 4 students. Students, 2 from the East and 2 from the West. We're going to get some excerpts from that and to help us talk about the problems that these young people saw and to get your reaction to it. And Hans von Bülow was a student of law at the Free University of Berlin in West Berlin. You know him?
Yes.
Why do you know him? Just
Because he is the son of a friend of mine who happens to be a member of parliament, Andreas von Bülow.
really?
Yes.
We didn't know that at the time. He didn't tell us that. Okay. here is 56 seconds of what he had to say, and I want your reaction to this young man from Germany.
Well, I always have mixed feelings. I feel differently, every month since the changes have been beginning. And just the first 2 weeks, 3 weeks, it was incredible. It was just like a small wonder. And then I started having bad feelings about the growing nationalism in the two Germanys, newspapers being printed in black, red, and gold, and showing so much nationalism and not caring about other different nations, the different nations around us and their fears. And first I was against the German unity. By now I just don't care about it anymore because I think it will happen anyway, and so it's one should rather care about what will be going on in the next couple of years.
That was in April. What about this nationalism thing? What's happened since April?
Not much that would support what Hans von Bülow was fearing at a certain time. I don't know whether he still believes that this is a case, that German unification will lead into some new nationalism. I want to be real careful, and I want to say that I can't project that analysis too far into the future. But what convinces me of the peaceful development really is the fact that this has been a democratic revolution. Peaceful democratic revolution. Democratic forces achieved unity. That's the main factor that convinces me of some hope. Even if you tend to believe that there are dangers associated with the German character, with German history, and so on, I think the fact that this is a true democratic movement gives me very much hope. And what Hans von Bülow said as a young man, I think he is in his mid-20s, I believe.
24.
24, voila. Is probably typical for that generation. They are out of school, out of high school, they dealt with history, they learned about it, I think they dealt with it in a very honest way. They wanted to tackle it rather than put it aside and paper over it. And no, this young man is a good representative, I think, of the younger generation, no doubt about it.
Mr. Portsy?
Yes, he certainly is a good representative. Whether he is a typical representative, I do not know. One reason why I feel very good today is the fact that there is no visible and no tangible nationalism at all. All public opinion polls across the board over the last weeks and months have proven that the Germans, yes, are happy about unification, but there are no nationalistic undertones. Very often it is overlooked that Germans have become less German and more European. The extent to which a European consciousness has been raised, has grown, particularly among the post-World War II generation. It's something which needs to be emphasized more actively than before. People don't think in nationalistic terms anymore. The West Germans who spent vacation in France, in England, in Italy, and Spain feel as part of Western Europe and not as just a German without any connection to the neighbors in the West, and hopefully very soon to the neighbors in the East. Again, Konrad Adenauer comes to mind, who led the West Germany into the integration with the West as the only way out of a disastrous German history.
By the way, before I ask Mr. Wiechert to respond to that, if we picked one issue that the three of you would disagree the most over, what would that be? As you know, if you're back in your country and you had a party fight over something, what's the issue that the three parties disagree over the most?
I think obviously it's the economic side of it. Yes.
How to deal with the economy?
Yep. How to deal, and even to some degree the analysis of what is going on differs.
Yep. Let's go back to Mr. Wiechert on Mr. von Bülow's nationalism comment.
I think he was a good young man. I was amazed. I know his father too. That he
what
has
party is
already,
his father in?
He's now
SPD.
Social Democrat. Yeah.
Well, was he?
he was a Free Democrat, no?
No.
At some time, earlier times, yes.
Not that I know of. I don't know
Not
how.
from
There's
Bülow.
von Bülow?
Not from Bülow. No, you mix
No?
that up
No,
with
no.
somebody else. He had a scholarship for the Gebhardt Foundation. I mean, he has a clean record. I mean, come on.
Well, the lady who was once foreseen for your press speaker, she had a stipend from our foundation. So I mean, these things happen.
Well, I don't deny that
But
this
anyway,
happens. But
let me remind what the president, our president von Weizsäcker, said today. He said to unite means to share. This is something obviously which we have to learn. This is new for all generations. To unite means to share. And we have to share a lot of our wealth, a lot of our democratic institutions, and altogether our country and Europe and the Western world. And if we do this, I think we are in a good shape then, in a couple of years. And people, if you have the chance to ask the same person maybe in 5 years what he thinks then, and I'm sure he will be a very positive, strong, and convinced European German.
By the way, the three of you, do you have family and kids here in this country?
yes, wife and a daughter.
How old?
Well, actually, two, I must say. One is 19 and one is 1.5. And one goes to school here at William and Mary, College of William and Mary, just started college, and the other one needs to learn a little more before she is ready for college. And it's good for our financial situation anyway, that she has some time to.
Mr. Wiechert, you had the daughter that we saw in the picture. Are there others?
Yes, I have 4 daughters. One is 9. She was born in Rome. Luisa, who you saw on the picture, was born in New York. Then we have Delia. She was born here. She is 3.5 now. She was born in Washington. And we have another one. She's 1 year old now, Fabia, also born in Washington. So 3 of them have dual citizenship.
Mr. Portson?
I have an 8.5-year-old daughter, Katrin, and she was born here in Washington. And likes Germany and is also very happy today. And if I can make this footnote, I was asking my colleague, Mr. Wiechert, whether he could give me one of his pictures, because I will give her that and to tell her the story, the United States President playing with Millie and the dogs together with the first grade of the German school. I think it's a marvelous occasion and will convey a very warm feeling to these young kids. President Bush did a terrific job this morning in the Rose Garden.
If you
Please
have
give me your picture one more time.
If you have a little bit of patience, I think we will ask whether the President will be so kind to sign it, and Luisa will also sign it, and then we give it to your daughter. How about that one?
Oh, that would be terrific.
Okay, let's
That
do it.
would be terrific.
We have some more from our students that we talked to on our trip to Berlin in April, and the next gentleman is from the eastern side of your country. Ronald Freitag is his name, and he is a student of psychology at Humboldt University in East Berlin. At least he was when we were there. And let's hear what he has to say and get your reaction to this.
Yeah, people always held as the poor relatives here in East Germany. And now they feel in the same way. And that makes a lot of frustration and a lot of aggression. You can feel it if you come to a pub. Yes, just a normal pub, a restaurant, a cheap restaurant. Yes, and you can't find a free place because a lot of West German people are sitting there. I think it is not only a question of buying or selling something, but it's a question of the behavior of the people. I can't say that they are guilty or in this way. Okay, that's normal. They can't do anything against it. They have the money and they are the rich relatives. Yes, in opposition to us. But it makes a feeling for us. It's very very aggressive, or sometimes very aggressive against the West.
Mr. Portzik, how are you dealing with this?
Obviously, it reflects upbringing in a communist regime, in a communist system, lack of experience with a free society. Just this one remark, you cannot find an empty chair in a restaurant. Well, obviously, that will change because the simple market mechanism will come into effect, and there will be another restaurant or more chairs or whatever, that the economy responds to human needs by itself in a way, and not bureaucrats. And the East Germans are so used to bureaucrats, it's so ingrained in their system, and I don't blame them. If we had lived there for so many years, if our political and sociological socialization would have taken place in a system like that, we would behave the same way. Again, it's up to us to demonstrate that we can be successful with a market economy with a human face. And what the West Germans have been doing, the so-called social market economy, is the system which will work. I'm very optimistic that 2-3 years down the road, East Germany will be just one big construction site, in a good sense of the word. Everything will be rebuilt, and 5 years down the road, I think we won't recognize East Germany anymore in terms of its physical condition. The rotten buildings will be gone, the destroyed roads will be gone, and the beauty of the architecture which is around all over East Germany, including East Berlin, will be redeveloped. I feel very good about that.
You're talking about the future, and you paint a beautiful future for them, and he was talking about the bitter reality.
I know.
And the economic differences between East and West, the rich people of the West that come there and can afford anything and everything, which they could not for many, many years. And I understand the bitterness that this leaves behind, particularly if it's paired with some sort of arrogance, looking down at East Germans today, instead of helping, instead of helping them to get over it. And to answer it, Wolfgang, just saying that wait for the market forces to do you good is probably not sufficient as an answer. I think we need a little more activity and not just let market forces prevail. I mean, what market forces do at the present time is they throw 2/3 of the East German workforce out of jobs.
How many people?
Well, out of the 16s, you can figure out that half of it is workforce, some 8.5 million. And out of these 8.5 million, you have a large part of unemployment, over 1 million, 1.2, and a great part of short-time workers, which is hidden unemployment, really.
What kind of money does the German government pay the unemployed, and for how long?
Well, they pay them a sum. It's not at the precise level of the West Germans, but they pay them enough to survive under the present circumstances.
For how long?
For, well, I guess according to the West German laws, which is a year you have time to receive unemployment compensation, and then it's turned into some social help assistance. That is not a brilliant prospect. Now, I do hope, and I have some hope, and I agree in that respect with Wolfgang Potzig to some degree, down the line they will be successful with all the help from the West, and they have the capability to do it, they have the skills, they have the ambition to do it. But the short-time transition is a real hard one, and I think we didn't anticipate the bitter consequences of turning a state-run economy into a market economy. Just to do monetary union is not enough. It would need a lot more help, a lot more assistance and support in order to be successful. We might see a lot of companies, smaller companies, just go under the impact of the market forces. That was a little help we could have saved, and saved us a lot of pain too, particularly for the East Germans who have to carry all that.
Bigger?
It's true, but there's no alternative. There is no alternative. There's no alternative to freedom, which they choose in a very peaceful revolution, as you said before. And there's also no alternative, I think, for these days now, or weeks, or maybe months to come, to go through this temporary suffering. But if you say it will be construction site in 3 years or 5 years, I say in 7 years it will be the most modern part of Europe.
Mm-hmm.
And
why is that?
Because they have the chance now to have the most modern technology, to know also about our mistakes concerning all the environmental protection, They do not have to make the same mistakes as we did. We have today, everybody has today a consciousness concerning the environment, pollution and all this. So I think it will be a most beautiful and most modern part of Europe in 5 to 7 or let's say 8 years.
Whatever happened to, I was particularly taken by the Trabant, the little 2-cylinder car. Anybody making those anymore?
Yes, I mean, they're almost booming.
With a VW engine, though.
Well, that will come. But right now they're trying to sell Trabis to Eastern European countries, and they buy them. I mean, for a very cheap price. The Trabi for the GDR population was very expensive. I mean, it was a ridiculous price.
$1,400 or something like that?
Much more. I mean, people in East Germany paid something like 15,000 marks for that car. I mean, unbelievable. For that price, you couldn't.
In the old days. In the old days, it was $10,000.
Oh yes, people had to wait for it years, and they had to save for it over years. It was ridiculous and unreal.
Talking about cars, let me ask you about Karl Hahn made the announcement a couple of days ago. He runs VW, the Volkswagen company, that they were going to build a $1.9 billion corporation, a plant in Eastern Germany to build 250,000 cars a year. Is it going to happen? And will they employ people that live in what used to be East Germany?
Yes, they will. But Brian, I mean, there's one important point. If Volkswagen takes over an East German company, the reality is that they're going to throw out 2/3 of the people that work for the old factory, because they come in with much more modern equipment, much more automatization, and they just don't need the workforce that IFA and other East German car factories used to have. So there's a problem. The massive unemployment that you'll have once Western companies decide to invest and take over. Even if they do, and I hope they will, and do it more than they do right now. Now there are a lot of obstacles. The ownership problem is barring investments. Environmental problems make people hesitant to take over because you don't know what the consequences are. If there is pollution, what you have to pay in order to bring that up to Western standards. These are the problems that I see that make it difficult in the short run to deal with unemployment and the dislocation that's happening right now.
We have just about 9 minutes left, and I want to go back to the students. This may be a little bit redundant, what we've talked about earlier, but I want to show you 2 more of the students. One again from West Germany, and her name is Heike Conrad, and I understand, I don't know whether she carried through with it, but she was planning to go to graduate school at Indiana University this fall. She should be there now. And the other woman was Esma Gregor, and she's a student of Spanish and English at Humboldt University in East Berlin. Ms. Conrad was 31, and Ms. Gregor was 20 at the time this was done. Let's listen to what they had to say about a part of our discussion, and again, we'll get our group's reaction.
I think there will always be a strong nationalism wing or a strong nationalistic party in Germany, but I hope that the democratic structure is that strong that these parties, these right-wing parties, let's say, can spoil the democracy, and I'm sure that the whole European process will bring Germany to a situation where it can't, let's say, start a war without having enemies all around.
I don't know if such a thing can happen again, but I know that in the GDR during the last years nothing happened for prevent such a thing. We had and we have kind of hate against foreigners, against people looking and speaking in another way, and I know it very well, and I'm afraid that during the next years there will be a big nationalist movement.
She had told the group also that her mother was Russian, I believe. I believe it was her mother or her father. I believe it was her mother was Russian. She was talking about how foreigners in general were just not liked in East Germany. Anybody from outside is. Have you had any experience like this, and what do you think?
I heard this also, that people in East Germany had a tendency to dislike foreigners, but I must say, where did they have a chance in the last 45 years to see foreigners others than for example, Soviet troops, or the enemy from the West, in their ideology, the enemy from the West. They had, I think, 70 or 80,000 guest workers from Vietnam, which lived completely isolated in camps somewhere. I think the great part has left already. If not, they will get a stay permit and will be integrated into our society now. But we in the West, we had the chance to learn languages, to travel, to be educated by our neighbors. They did not have that chance.
Why are those Soviet troops going to stay there for another 4 years, and what are they going to do?
Well, the main
Good
reason,
question.
of course, is that they can't find housing in the Soviet Union. What they're going to do is, I assume, not much, except being there.
And the German government's going to pay for them?
Yeah, the German government is even paying for them.
$7 billion?
It's even more than that altogether. 13 billion, if I'm not wrong. Well, that's a matter of stability in order to enable the Soviet Union to deal with the question. I mean, what the Soviet Union gave up is not easy in any way, and nobody would have anticipated that possibility for a short time ago, even. I think it's a matter of stability, and we shouldn't worry about it. If that is helpful for the Soviet Union in order to implement that dramatic change, I think it's worth it.
The conservatives, would you label the Christian Democratic Union conservative?
I don't think conservatism is a dirty word. In
No, I don't mean
Germany,
that.
I don't mind at all.
Well, here's my question. If you're a conservative, when she meant right wingers, what's she talking about? I mean, is there a party beyond the conservative?
Brian, I'm glad you came back to these remarks. I take the anxiety about an increasing nationalism very serious, yet I don't see any signs, and I've observed very carefully the German political landscape. Give you an example. In the mid-1960s, West Germany for the first time went into a deep economic recession. We had a right-wing party, the NPD at that time, and the whole world was watching what would happen. They did not get elected into the federal parliament. The West German voter said no. 2 years ago, all over the world, we heard voices saying, well, there's another right-wing party, the Republikaner.
Not to mix up with the American.
The Republikaner. Today, on October 3, nobody talks about the Republikaner, and I bet you they will not make it into the new parliament.
1%.
In other words, the West German voter is sophisticated enough, the democratic structures have taken a hold not to make this blunder again. Now, we have 16 million East Germans, I understand that. They have a different political culture. I've been saying this at the very beginning, but we will undertake every effort to integrate them into our democratic thinking. And again, we can do it alone. I would like the United States to play a role there as well. It is great to experience this country, and it's much easier afterwards to remain a lifelong Democrat.
We have just 2 minutes. What's going to be the biggest problem for the next year? Let me start with you. What's the biggest problem in Germany over the next year?
It's the economy. To deal with the economy, and what Dieter Detke said with the unemployed, to change the economy there from that horrible state-controlled economy, if one can use that word in this context, to a free market economy which is socially oriented and which is also ecologically rooted.
What's another problem you're going to have to deal with this year?
I think the biggest short-term problem will be the economic issues in East Germany, plus an enormous influx of refugees. economic, social refugees from Eastern Europe, Poland, Romania, Bulgaria, Hungary, Soviet Union. And I want to see, and I hope, the Federal Republic and the new Germany can play a very constructive role in that difficult, very difficult situation. It's not enough to solve that with visas.
What's another problem you might have to deal with? Am I straining it here?
No, I don't think you do, Brian. I think it's almost ironic. A major problem will be that the Germans don't take the chance to provide leadership, to shoulder responsibility worldwide, and I think it will be a problem to convey to the Germans there's more than just German unification. The world goes on, and we have to play a larger role.
Mr.
And it's almost ironic to remind the Germans to that very effect on October 3.
I'm sorry we're out of time, and I want to tell the audience quickly that Mr. Wolfgang Portzig is a representative of the Konrad Adenauer Foundation. He's been in this country about 9 years. The Konrad Adenauer Foundation is affiliated with the Christian Democratic Union, a party that runs the Bundestag, and the Prime Minister Kohl is a member of. They have 242 members in that party. And Mr. Dieter Detke is the executive director of the Friedrich Ebert Foundation. He's been in this country about
5 years.
5 years.
Right.
He's the Friedrich Ebert Foundation has been affiliated with the Social Democratic Party, which is run by Oscar Lafontaine. And finally, Jürgen Wiebert, who is a representative of the Friedrich Naumann Foundation, and he has been in this country for about 6 years. Thank you all very much for spending this day, this important day in your country's life and ours too. And we appreciate the audience joining us. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
That concludes this discussion on German unification. Be sure to join us on Sunday at 9 for a speech by Neil Kinnock, the leader of the British Labour Party. He addresses the Labour Party conference this week, which is similar to the National Party conferences held in this country. That's on Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Coming up next, a message to the German people by President Bush.